Welcome to the Chaos Chronicles, where parenting, humor, and the hard truths of foster care, adoption, and big behaviors collide. Hi, I'm Stacy Hickey. I'm mom of 6. I've been a foster parent to 17 children, and I'm the adoptive mom of my 2 youngest daughters. With years of experience as a child abuse detective turned school counselor, I'm here to offer real talk, expert advice, and plenty of laughs. If you're navigating the chaos of parenting, whether you're a foster or adoptive parent, a special needs parent, or just trying to make sense of the wild ride of family life, this podcast is for you. Each episode delivers practical tips, heartwarming stories, and a dose of comedy to help you embrace the beautiful chaos of your journey. Let's normalize the struggles of parenting children with big behaviors, ADHD, autism, and trauma, and create a space where you never have to walk this path alone. Laugh, learn, and lean into the chaos together. Subscribe now to stay updated on all new episodes. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Chaos Chronicles. I am so glad you are here. We are kicking off the Chaos Chronicles with a breakdown of our family. I think it is important to share where we come from, and for lack of better words, what qualifies me to speak on the topics of foster care, adoption, special needs, and big behaviors. Today, I get to focus on the baby of our family, Millie. I'm pretty sure everyone in our community knows Millie. This is typically either really great or really bad. We live in a smaller community, and most days I feel like I am Millie famous. I am rarely ever noticed as Stacy or Mrs. Hickey. I am almost always, hey, you're Millie's mom, right? Millie is the cutest thing you've ever laid eyes on. She is hilarious. She is also full of sass and incredibly spicy. Millie is the perfect mix of Wreck-It Ralph and Fix-It Felix. She is like a walking tornado, but loves to tinker and fix things. Millie has severe ADHD, so organization of any type is out the window. You don't even want to see her side of the bedroom. Poor Sammy. You can get her a toy that she has been begging for nonstop, and she is over it within 72 hours. She is crafty and creative. I swear this child can build the most amazing spaceship out of a cardboard box, a toilet paper roll, and a pipe cleaner. She is extremely strong-willed and has an amazing ability to figure out anything she puts her mind to. Millie is sneaky and sly, and she fully embraces the phrase, where there is a will, there is a way. She has been diagnosed with disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. If you have never heard this, think of oppositional defiance on steroids. We will talk more about DMDD in future episodes. Millie struggles with regulation and can be extremely aggressive and destructive. In addition to ADHD and DMDD, Millie also lives with autism and has significant cognitive delays. Basically, this kid has taken us to a whole new level of Jumanji without instructions to fight through the game. Now that you have a little snapshot, let's start at the beginning. We learned about Millie when my husband and I were both working at a local foster care adoption agency. Side note, Terrence and I have essentially always worked together since we met. It is the weirdest thing. We met on the police department, where we both worked together, and then we left the police department and found ourselves both working at an adoption agency, and then we left, and now we both are working at the same school in the same school district. We just can't seem to get enough of one another. Anyway, while working at the adoption agency, Millie's birth mom's file kept coming across my desk. Her mom was over 7 months pregnant, and the agency was struggling to find an adoptive home for the baby. Millie's birth mom is significantly mentally ill, diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, and borderline personality disorder, all enhanced by methamphetamine. Her birth mom will not take medication and instead uses drugs. My understanding is that multiple families expressed an interest in adoption until they met the birth mom. Birth mom is a lot, and I am sure she scared off quite a few families. The first time I learned about Millie, I assumed that there would be no issues with an adoptive family coming forward before her mom's due date. Then, each week that passed, her file was still there. This is when I started to feel that little nudge in my gut. Another week passed, the due date was coming closer, and still no family to adopt the baby. I prayed about it a lot, and I felt like maybe the reason that no one was stepping up was because we were meant to step up. I walked down the hall to Terrence's office, and I told him we needed to talk. Now, he will tell you a different version of events for this meeting, but I will tell you the truth. I told him about the birth mom and how her due date was quickly approaching, and there was no one to adopt the baby. I suggested that maybe God placed us where we were because we were meant to adopt the baby. Now, this is where our stories will differ. He will tell you that he didn't think it was a good idea, our hands were already full, blah, blah, blah. But this was the real conversation. I said to him, honey, I think maybe we're meant to adopt the baby. And then he said, okay, let's do it. Now, for those of you that know Terrence and know what a soft, huge heart he has, you know that my story is definitely the true story. Because this was a private adoption, we had to go through the same hoops as any other adoptive family. We created a getting to know you flyer so that Millie's mom could get to know a little bit about us to help her decide if she wanted us to raise her baby or not. It was known that she was not capable of parenting, but she still had the choice of who would adopt her child. Even if there was no adoptive family, she still had the decision. DCS would have then stepped in and taken custody of the baby. But once Mom agreed to allow us to adopt the baby, we arranged a meeting with her. Millie's mom lives 2 hours away from us. She was living in a court-ordered group home because she is unable to live independently. Our first meeting took all of 5 minutes. Millie's mom was completely, with a capital C, out of it. I am not sure if it was drug-induced or something else, but she could not stay awake, and the conversation made absolutely no sense. We met. It was so freaking weird. The pregnancy counselor hinted to us as we were leaving that we could back out at any time, but we were fully committed, slightly terrified, but fully committed. The next call we got from the pregnancy counselor was a few days later, telling us that Millie's birth mom had been committed to the state hospital due to trying to harm her unborn child. Visit number 2 for us happened at the state hospital. That was an interesting experience, to say the least. Then, Mom's induction was scheduled, and we were set to be at the hospital the evening of May 7th, 2015, for Millie's birth. Ironically, Terrence just happened to be coaching at a wrestling tournament in Las Vegas at that same time Millie was scheduled to be born. So, I was doing this alone. I met the pregnancy counselor and Mom at the hospital around 6 p.m., and the adventure began. Of course, I will never forget to remind Terrence that he literally owes me for the rest of his life. I get into Mom's room and we waited and waited and waited. There was no progress happening with the pregnancy. It was really awkward. Most of the conversations with Mom didn't make much sense, and at one point, around 1 a.m., she literally asked me to go buy lottery tickets for her because she was feeling lucky. Mind you, the hospital was in an extremely shady part of town. I didn't even know how to respond to that, but I went. She didn't win. It was a whole situation. 6 a.m. rolls around, still no baby. The pregnancy counselor tells me she's leaving because she needs to get her daughter to school. Nurse change happens, and the day shift nurse decides to reposition Mom to see if this will get her progressing. So at this point, it's just Mom and me. And I am awkward on my own already. I do not need any help. So to say that it was a little uncomfortable is an understatement. And then all of a sudden, progression happened, like immediately. Within 20 minutes, Mom is telling me the baby's coming. I'm thinking there is no way in hell that this is happening so quickly. We have been here for 13 hours with nothing. But I go out to the hall and I try to find some medical person. I grab someone and I tell them that Mom says the baby's coming. She actually has the same thoughts as me, like no way this is happening this fast. But she goes into the room to appease Mom and checks her out. Sure enough, the baby is coming. Next thing you know, everyone is running into the room. They probably weren't actually running, but it sure felt like it the entire time. Everything happened in a matter of minutes. Now we're going to pause for a second to talk about my expected hospital role as the adoptive mom. My role was to stand back while the baby was being born, then help take over the care of the baby, make sure Mom was okay, nothing hands-on with the birth. Mind you, I had 4 C-sections with my boys and have never actually witnessed a vaginal birth in my life. Next thing you know, I'm holding a leg while Mom's pushing out a baby. I am not sure who said that birth is a beautiful thing, but I beg to differ. There are some things that you just cannot unsee. After a handful of pushes, we have the birth of Millie. Terrence did grace us with his presence for about 30 minutes on his way home from the wrestling tournament, so there is that. After a few days in the hospital, I brought my sweet girl home. This adoption is an open adoption, meaning that we will keep the lines of communication open with Mom as long as it's deemed safe and appropriate. Millie is the 4th child of her mom, and she doesn't have custody of any of her other children. Mom also doesn't have any family around that still stay in touch with her, so I felt like it was important for her to be connected to somebody. When Millie was born, we were open to visits. We would travel to Mom and let her see Millie. When Millie was 1, it got to the point that Mom just couldn't stay sober, and it was no longer in Millie's best interest to visit. We told Mom that if she could maintain sobriety for 4 months, we would visit again. Millie is now 9 years old, and that visit has never happened. Millie was a great baby. She was pretty easy until she started walking. As soon as she learned to walk and talk, it was game on. She never stopped moving. As a little baby, she would scale the refrigerator, scale the cupboards. She would build towers with anything that she could get her hands on. You had to pat her down at night because she would sneak markers into her bedroom to draw on everything. She would pull everything out of every drawer in her room, and we would wake up to complete chaos. She actually still pulls everything out of every drawer in her room and makes it complete chaos. But you could not let her out of your sight. You would think with Millie being kid number 6, we would know better, but we really just thought it was a phase that she would outgrow. At the age of 3, we finally realized that we might want to take her to the doctor for an evaluation. We took Millie to a veteran child psychiatrist. After 10 minutes in his office, his gasps were a flabbered that we had taken so long to have Millie evaluated. At 3 years old, she was diagnosed with ADHD. The doctor told us that she was the most severe case of ADHD that he had ever seen. She was also receiving services through a program called Arizona Early Intervention. She qualified for this program due to her global delays. Millie qualified for an IEP at this time and started to attend a developmental preschool, which, thank the Lord, because she kept getting fired from daycare. The preschool was fabulous, and Millie's teachers were great. It was in preschool that we started to notice Millie struggling socially. She struggled to make and maintain friendships. She would prefer to play alongside her peers instead of with them. Millie had communication delays, and her vocabulary was pretty limited. While every 3 to 4-year-old has tantrums, Millie's tantrums were just different. They were much bigger, and they were much longer. As Millie transitioned into kindergarten, we also started to see her aggressive behaviors rear their ugly head. She was fighting with her peers, being aggressive with staff, would cuss up a storm. We started to get a better understanding of just how delayed she was cognitively. From an academic standpoint, Millie was light years behind her peers. Her behaviors happened both in school and out of school. Having a child with huge aggressive behaviors is really hard. People look at you like you're just a terrible parent, and they look at your child like she is just a bad kid. When you see Millie, she looks neurotypical. Having an invisible disability brings an entire different level of stress and judgment. In kindergarten, we added oppositional defiance and intellectual disability to her list of diagnoses. We attempted med management, but struggled for years to find a good combination of medication for her that didn't have horrible side effects. Despite Millie's behaviors, she had the most incredible special education team. This team loved and still loves Millie so much. Millie can be so incredibly loving despite her challenges. If she considers you to be one of her people, she loves you so hard. We have continued to be blessed with an amazing SPED team through elementary school. They value us and our insight, and they know that we are the experts on our daughter. They push in appropriate areas, and we are truly a team. I honestly don't think we would have survived public school this long without these folks. I feel like they are the dream team at her school. From the ages of 4 to 9, we saw more specialists than I can count. I have always felt strongly that Millie lived with autism, but she doesn't present with typical symptoms. So every medical professional we saw would blow me off. Millie struggles socially. She doesn't engage in conversations with you unless she is asking for something or the conversation is really interesting to her. She struggles to regulate herself and has huge sensory input needs. I always knew in my heart that she lived with autism, and getting dismissed for years sucked big time and delayed so many services. We will definitely be talking about girls and autism in a future episode. As Millie has gotten older, her behaviors have gotten bigger. Her diagnosis of oppositional defiance changed to disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Essentially, Millie is chronically irritable. We walk on eggshells day and night. The mood swings are out of this world. Each morning we wake up and we don't know what we're going to get. In the mental health world, DMDD is the mood disorders version of here, hold my beer. Many people say that DMDD is the precursor for bipolar. I'm not sold on this just yet, but we definitely see how this might be the path we're on. The behaviors have been a battle both at home and at school. We have to lock up all sharps in our house for fear that the combination of anger and lack of impulse control will end up catastrophic. She has started to express suicidal and homicidal ideations. I genuinely don't believe she has any intent. She just doesn't know how to identify her feelings or express herself, but we're working on it. Regardless, we always make sure everyone is safe. Millie had her first and hopefully last inpatient hospitalization 11 months ago. This was an entire nightmare of a situation that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. After Millie's inpatient stay, I sought out my own autism evaluation for her. I knew that something was missing, and I was determined to explore all options. Come to find out, I was right all along. Millie does live with autism and is considered pretty high needs. It is amazing the doors and support that open up for families when there is an autism diagnosis. Suddenly, all of these folks wanted to help us. While I am so incredibly grateful, it also pisses me off at the same time. There are so many families that are really going through it and are in some really dark places. Parents who have kids with big behaviors but don't have that autism diagnosis get almost zero support. It is extremely frustrating. But back to Millie. Millie is now in 3rd grade. She still struggles in all the areas mentioned before. The older she gets, the harder her academic deficits become. She struggles to read and write and is nowhere near completing 3rd grade level work. She wants to make good decisions more than anything. She wants to have friends, and she wants to be kind and be in control of herself. She can be very hard on herself. She is incredibly creative and outgoing. We got to the point where the side effects of the antipsychotics Millie was taking were just too much. They weren't really managing behaviors well anyways, and so we decided to change things up. I found an alternative treatment protocol for DMDD called Matthew's Protocol. This protocol is not widely used and can often be dismissed by psychiatrists because it doesn't include antipsychotics. It actually addresses the amygdala in the brain. Our psychiatrist has been with us for a very long time, same psychiatrist since she was 3 years old. He knows that we have tried so many different medications and has been extremely gracious in his willingness to give Matthew's Protocol a try. I can happily report that while not perfect, we are in a pretty okay place right now. We have seen a huge decrease in the violence and aggression. Now, curse words, not so much. Girl can make a sailor blush and leave a hardened criminal wondering where they went wrong with the curse words that fly out of her mouth. I haven't heard from her birth mom in over a year, which is highly unusual. I have checked the jails, the hospitals, obituaries, but I haven't had any luck even getting a hint of whether she is alive or not. Millie is such a special little girl. She is definitely my person, and I am hers. I love that girl to no end and truly believe that while so many people have already placed a limit on where they think she will top out both academically and in life, I refuse. I will continue to nurture all of her dreams and provide as many opportunities for her as I can. Her path may zig and zag and not look like everyone else's, and that is okay. Millie's path is her own, and it's an incredibly beautiful one. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about my Millie Bug. She is a pretty incredible girl. Don't forget to subscribe to the Chaos Chronicles podcast so you can stay updated on new episodes. If you feel so inclined to write a review, that would be amazing. Lastly, if you want to follow our crazy life outside the podcast, you can find me at Life with the Hickeys on Instagram. If you have any thoughts, questions, or a topic that you'd like for me to talk about, please feel free to PM me on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook at Stacy Hickey. So much love to you and yours. See you next time. Take care.